Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go. I love surprises and gifts. Who doesn't love them, right? But it's one thing when surprises leave positive emotions, and another when a surprise makes you want to sink through the ground. My wife and my best friend made a surprise for me that I remembered for the rest of my life. But I did not lose my head and also gave them a nice gift. It's been a challenging couple of months for me. I'm Danny. The manufacturing company I was employed at closed down, resulting in over 200 people being laid off. This company happened to be one of the major contracts for the company where my wife, Darcy, works. Consequently, her working hours have been scaled back, significantly impacting our finances. Our closest friends are primarily Darcy's college buddies. Darcy started working at Akron Solutions straight out of college. Her close friend Ginger faced some delays due to excessive partying, which caused her to graduate a year later than planned. Darcy managed to recruit her to join Akron. Later on, Trent, who had been part of the same college circle as Darcy and Ginger, also joined Akron. Trent and Ginger tied the knot about 18 months ago, a year after Trent joined the company. Darcy and I got married 5 years ago. With my company closing down, Trent, Ginger, and Darcy have all experienced reduced working hours while I find myself unemployed. Darcy has been incredibly supportive as I search for new job opportunities. We've had to tighten our belts and make do with my unemployment benefits and Darcy's reduced paycheck. Originally, the four of us had planned a lavish vacation to California's wine country. However, due to budget constraints, we've scaled back our plans to weekend getaways in the mountains. Trent and Darcy both had Friday off, while Ginger was scheduled to join us around noon on Friday after her Thursday night shift. We had done a similar trip 2 weeks ago and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. Personally, I enjoy fishing. Darcy prefers hiking. Ginger is into photography, and Trent enjoys bird and small animal hunting. During our last trip, the ladies doubted Trent and me, fearing we wouldn't be able to provide enough food for the weekend. However, they were proven wrong. In the wilderness, there are no six-packs or wine bottles, so we brought our own provisions. Darcy and I arrived on Thursday evening, whiling away the time waiting for Trent to join us. While we were fooling around, I was having fun, and Darcy was enjoying the fact that I escorted her to a place of pleasure. The torrent arrived an hour before dusk. Upon Trent's arrival, we transported our initial load to the spot we had discovered 2 weeks prior. It's roughly a 20-minute climb from the parking area, but our coolers with big wheels served as mules for most of our gear. After Trent and I set up 2 tents, we returned to the cars to fetch the remaining items, leaving Darcy alone with Trent's fancy Beretta, a .400 shotgun, which he boasted about getting at a great deal from a pawn shop. As someone unfamiliar with firearms, I kept quiet during his enthusiastic descriptions. Trent and I share many interests, so we caught up on our experiences while walking. With small backpacks, we carried the rest of our belongings to the campsite. Meanwhile, Darcy had started a fire and was cooking burgers and hot dogs. The mosquito candles provided minimal protection this time due to recent days of rain. Our campsite is secluded enough that we seldom hear passers-by. Without cell phone signal for internet browsing, we resorted to passing my guitar around and taking turns playing. None of us were particularly skilled, but it added to the ambiance under the moonlight. We called it a night around 11 after extinguishing the fire. For those who are not used to hiking in the mountains, the early hours can be very cold. Darcy and I cuddled up to each other until she expressed a desire for more. With her muffled moans, I brought her to the desired climax. With her arousal, we made love, reaching a release without interference. After starting a fire in the morning, I shaved while waiting for the coffee to brew. Darcy, with her hair tied back, joined me when the aroma of coffee filled the air. She was dressed in jeans and her favorite sweatshirt. Trent, preferring to let others take charge in the morning, appeared shortly after. After drinking a few energy drinks, Trent took his shotgun and went bird hunting. As soon as he left, Darcy teased me with promises to repeat the previous night. I slipped my hand under her hoodie, playing with her body. We had agreed to rendezvous around noon to welcome Ginger upon her arrival. I set off towards the lake for a fishing excursion. After finding a comfortable spot on a rock, I cast my line into the serene waters. A man without any fishing equipment approached me, revealing himself to be a game warden inquiring about my fishing license. Lacking one, and luckily, having caught nothing yet, he issued me a warning. My day, and potentially the entire weekend of fishing, came to an abrupt halt. It took only 15 minutes for my world to shatter. Upon returning to our campsite, the sight before me revealed Darcy engaged in intimate activities inside our tent. Although she did not raise her voice, her words were unmistakably recognizable. "Do it, Trent, I'm burning up. Oh my God, I'm almost done. Make love to me. Trent, make love to me." Trent's grunts confirmed his involvement. "Oh God, I'm about to climax. Make me complete." "Baby," my unfaithful wife pleaded. My initial instinct was to end them both. It nearly became reality as I entered Trent's tent and seized his shotgun. Loading shells with hands trembling more than they should have, I stood outside my tent overhearing Trent's parting words. "I'll grab a six-pack. Get ready to revive me for round 2. Stepping back from the entrance of my tent, I awaited Trent's appearance. As he approached the cooler, I struck the back of his head with the shotgun's butt. He was knocked unconscious before hitting the ground. Now what? I stood silently, gazing at someone I once considered a friend. Despite feeling that the asshole deserved to die, I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger while pointing the gun at Trent. My anger peaked when Darcy's voice echoed, "What's taking Trent so long?" My throat needs attention. I discharged both shotgun shells into the air. Darcy shrieked upon glimpsing me with the gun, and Trent sprawled on the ground. Oh no, my God, what have you done?" "You killed him." Darcy froze at the tent's entrance, her eyes wide as I aimed the shotgun at her knees. "So your throat needs attention, huh? Open wide or I'll blow your head off. Don't you dare scream." Darcy's mouth gaped open wide. "Do you think a shotgun blast would satisfy your desires, you slut?" Tears rolled down her terrified face. I continued, "Simply killing you wouldn't suffice for the suffering you deserve. Now lie face down until I instruct otherwise. If I hear so much as a peep, I'll do to you what I did to Trent. Node yes, if you comprehend. Not a single word. Understood?" She responded with a flurry of about 50 quick nods before rolling over and burying her face in the pillow. I snatched her cell phone from the tent and sealed the entrance shut. As I surveyed Trent's lifeless body, a fitting plan came to mind. I untethered the 4 corner anchors of his tent, each secured with a short length of rope. Using my gutting knife, I severed those connections. Attaching one rope to Trent's left ankle, I dragged his naked and unconscious body across rocks and thorny bushes, heading toward my chosen spot. During our camp setup the previous evening, we had spotted and avoided a large fire ant hill. Now my only decision was whether Trent would face up or face down. Ultimately, the sun-scorched buttocks gave way to the decision of roasting the wiener and nuts. One by one, I drove each tent stake into the ground, fastening an arm or a leg to each. Trent, resembling a naked letter X, grew restless as ants began to coax him into movement. Those damn little insects had already bitten me several times. Ouch. Those bites really sting. I placed a sizable rock in Trent's mouth. He'd need a finger to remove it, but his hands were unreachable, covered in fire ants. By the time I finished securing him, I had been bitten by ants dozens of times. Trent, now fully awake, cast pleading eyes in my direction, twitching with each bite. "Listen, you son of a bitch. I could kill you, but that's not nearly enough pain and suffering for you. Even if you have me arrested, there's no way I won't make bail. You turn me into the cops, and I'll ensure you disappear without a trace. They won't find your body. I thought we were friends, but friends don't sleep with each other's wives." As I made my way back to the tents, I could hear his cries and whimpers. Concerned that Darcy might use Trent's cell phone to call for help, I swiftly took it from his tent, brushing away ants that had invaded my clothes. Standing outside my tent, I angrily addressed Darcy. "Well, I hope you're satisfied. Trust me, if the authorities get involved, I'll ensure no one finds your bodies. You wanted passionate sex. Now you'll face my retaliation. I won't divorce you, Darcy. Instead, I intend to empty our bank accounts and cash in the CD we were saving for house renovations. Since divorce isn't on the table, I'll spend the money as I see fit. Catch up with you later. Ginger will arrive soon enough. Good luck explaining everything to her. Oh, and just so you know, I have the shotgun aimed at the tent. Don't mess with the zipper or you might trigger it. Danny, please don't leave me. I messed up badly, I know. I'm sorry. Despite the temptation to respond, I remain silent. Typically, it's a 20-minute hike back to the parking area, but I managed it in 10. Those persistent ants continued to bite me. I couldn't even begin to fathom how Trent must be feeling. Our cars were still the only ones in the parking lot. I still had the shotgun in my possession, but it wasn't aimed at the tent like I had led Darcy to believe. After placing Darcy and Trent's cell phones on the ground, I used the butt of the shotgun to smash them into tiny pieces of useless junk, ensuring they would never receive service again. To avoid a littering fine, I gathered up the fragments and stuffed them into a fast food bag from the trash can. I regretted not bringing a pocket full of shells. Trent's car would have borne the brunt of my anger. Instead, I used rocks to heavily damage his windshield, and then proceeded to disable his headlights, side mirrors, and taillights. Carrying the fast food bag and the shotgun, I resisted the urge to dispose of them in the trash can belonging to the Keep America Beautiful park system. Upon reaching a picturesque overpass, I threw the shotgun into a peaceful lake. When I stopped for gas, I disposed of the phone remnants in the dumpster. Upon reaching the bank around noon, I conducted a thorough assessment of our finances. The certificate of deposit, CD, was linked to our savings account, and the bank was willing to impose an early termination fee, which I accepted. Following that, I converted a significant portion of our checking and savings into numerous Visa gift cards, depleting the bank balances. With my pockets filled with these cards, I returned home to pack what I deemed necessary for my journey. Now what next? I'm likely in serious trouble for what I did to Trent. At least I didn't physically harm Darcy, but the emotional pain is overwhelming, prompting me to seek escape. Leaving my phone on the kitchen table, I made my way to Walmart to purchase a GPS blocker, intending to prevent my car from leaving a digital trail. I also added a burner phone to my shopping cart. Alongside essentials like bread, sliced meats, and fruit, I included several six-packs of diet soda, aiming to maintain some semblance of healthy eating amid the chaos. The quickest route out of the state was southward, and I felt immense relief upon crossing into the neighboring state. After refueling, I used my new phone to send my parents an email, informing them of my departure not only from Darcy but also from the state. To dispel any rumors, I disclosed Darcy's infidelity, reassuring them that I would contact them when possible. I won't sugarcoat it. The initial week was incredibly tough. It was 7 days and nights of self-pity. I had reached Brownsville, the southernmost tip of Texas, where you can easily cross over into Mexico. Matamoros, the border town, welcomed me warmly. I parked my car in a long-term garage in Brownsville, taking only a duffel bag and $2,000 in Visa cards with me. The rest of the money I left in an envelope hidden in the back seat of my car. If someone broke into my car while I was away, they'd only find my custom PIN number for those cards. Initially, I wasn't worried, considering none of the other cars in the parking lot were tampered with. However, now I was slightly concerned. Perhaps they tow away the stripped vehicles. I traveled across Mexico using tour buses, enjoying the scenery and encountering working women along the way. Guilt shadowed my first encounter with them, but it gradually faded. I had no idea how much a prostitute cost back home, but they were quite affordable here. My finances were going a lot further here than back in the States, but I was beginning to yearn for life back home. If emails could make your ears burn, Darcy's came close. She was adamant that I knew it was Ginger who called for an ambulance. I was fortunate she did. Trent had been on life support for several critical days. Apparently, fire ant bites can be fatal. I've been bitten about 30 times and endured days of excruciating pain. Trent, however, had bites covering over 90% of his body. Poor guy. As a result, I could potentially face charges of attempted murder. But what evidence did they have against me? At best, circumstantial. Sure, my fingerprints were all over the tent stakes and hammer, but I could argue I handled those when setting up the tents. My parents' emails were restrained. They expressed disappointment in me, but also understood the stress I had been under and the shock of discovering Darcy's infidelity. I suppose parents always try to find the silver lining. I estimated that I could sustain myself for at least a year if my Visa cards were still in my car in Brownsville. Concerned that my passport might have raised flags instead of returning to Brownsville by foot across the bridge, I opted to pay for a late-night canoe ride to a deserted beach. However, the reality of sleeping on the beach wasn't as idyllic as portrayed in the media. I endured freezing temperatures and generously contributed to the local mosquito population. At dawn, I trekked back to the parking structure, a journey that consumed the entire morning given the considerable distance between the beach and Brownsville. Upon reaching my untouched car, I headed west, making a pit stop at a casino in Sunland Park, just outside of El Paso, but technically in New Mexico. After securing a room for the night at a nearby motel, the warmth of a hot shower was a welcome relief. Following a satisfying meal of delivered pizza, I fell asleep for a solid 12 hours. Passing the afternoon by, watching live horse racing at Sunland Park, I indulged in a sensual massage at a nearby parlor, leaving me feeling drowsy. Consequently, I spent another night near the casino before setting off for the West Coast. I roamed around Southern California without a specific plan. Things can get a bit unconventional there sometimes. While shopping at a Fry's grocery store, a friendly young woman scanned my purchases. A gallon of milk in a plastic jug, a pound of ham wrapped in plastic, a loaf of bread in a plastic bag, a salad in a plastic container, and a bottle of mustard in a plastic squeeze bottle. She then informed me, "Unless you have your own, we'll provide a paper bag. We've stopped offering plastic bags because of their environmental impact." I chuckled quietly as I paid for the paper bag and packed my plastic items into it. I attempted a few temporary jobs, but physical labor didn't suit me. It was a step up from aimless strolls through antique shops and idle hours on the beach. Everything seemed excessively preceded, so I spent a few weeks in Nevada contemplating my future. Reality started to set in. I disliked the feeling of being adrift, and I missed my parents, though Darcy not so much. And a mail from Darcy expressed her longing for my return devoid of any apology or explanation. Reconciliation. Why entertain the thought? I chose not to respond. After 2 months, I steered my car homeward. My brief period of confusion would bring challenges, but once the clouds cleared, I'd regain control of my life. 2 days later, I arrived at my parents' house, wondering if Darcy had kept up with the mortgage payments on our once-shared dream home. Despite its past significance, I felt little inclination to even drive past it. When the weather is pleasant, my parents keep the front door open, and today was one of those days, so I walked in, announcing my arrival. "Danny, you're back," my mother exclaimed. "Hey, Mom, how are you?" I replied, embracing her. "Are you just passing through?" "Did anyone see you?" she asked. "No, I'm tired of running. I need you and Dad to put this envelope in a safe place for me." I converted all the money I could get my hands on into Visa gift cards before I disappeared. "These are the remaining cards," I explained. "Your father is out golfing. He'll be pleased." "Have you been in touch with Darcy?" she inquired. "Oh, no." "Why would I?" I responded. "Well, she is your wife. She calls about once a week to see if we've heard from you. Even after all that went down, she still loves you," my mother said. "That may well be, but even though I still have feelings for her, I can't and won't live with her again." "What would be the point?" "For me, it would be like sitting in a stalled car on railroad tracks. Just a matter of time before the next train wreck," I explained. Mom looked sad and remained silent for a while. "Have you had something to eat?" "I could reheat some leftovers or make soup and a BLT," she suggested. "That would be excellent. Whatever's easiest." "Thank you. Why don't you take a shower? It smells like you've been on the road for a few days." "I will, because I have." After showering, eating, and napping, it was late afternoon and my dad had returned from playing golf. "Hey, Dad, how did your round go today?" "Like a bottle rocket. Couldn't predict where the ball was going, but I did win a skin on that par 3 over the lake. Skipped it across the water, then chipped in for the only birdie on that hole today. Pretty cool, huh? It's just a small box on the scorecard. They don't ask how, just how many. Next time you have an open slot, do you mind if I join? I'll warn you now that I haven't played in a long time. So you're sticking around? Yeah, until they come looking for me. I figure they might hesitate on offering bail since I just bolted on them. But you came back. That has to count for something. Maybe. I just don't know how eager they are to make an example out of me. I'm not exactly sure how Darcy found out I had returned, but she sent me an email warning that Trent was looking to settle a score with me. I hadn't even considered that possibility. It seems he's recovered from his run-in with those pesky little red devils. The next morning, Dad and I went golfing, and when we got back, the sheriff was waiting for me. I was charged with aggravated assault, and bail was set at $50,000. My parents used their savings to bail me out, and by noon the next day, I was back home. I couldn't bear the thought of my parents losing their hard-earned $50,000, so I knew I was in it for the long haul. Luckily, my attorney believed they couldn't prove intent given the circumstances, so the charge of attempted murder was dropped. When I got home, Mom told me, Darcy called. She's on her way over to talk. Great, thanks for getting me out, I replied sarcastically. About an hour later, Darcy arrived. Instead of involving my parents in our discussion, I went out to meet her car before she could even get out. She rolled down her window before turning off the engine. Hey, I said, breaking the ice. Darcy looked downcast. Hey, she replied softly. So, what did you want to talk about? We need to make some decisions. My guess is we're done. What were your expectations when you destroyed our marriage? We can try to resolve things. I acted foolishly. I was self-centered. I was incredibly immature. I've aged a dozen years since you left. You weren't supposed to discover it. Do you no longer acknowledge the past? Am I just supposed to overlook the fact that vows and promises mean nothing to you? What did you think would happen if I found out? I hadn't thought it through. I guess I hoped you'd never find out. Why? I've asked myself that question 1,000,000 times. There's no way to justify it. Nothing comes to mind except that I never thought I'd get caught. How many others, and how long were you involved with Trent? Just Trent. We were together once at work, and then on the camping trip a few weeks before you caught us, she said, tears welling up in her eyes. What changed to make you betray me? One day you believe in a lifetime of faithfulness, and the next day you decide to abandon it? I don't understand. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to respond. I wish I knew. God, I wish I knew. I'm so sorry. I had no further questions, so I stood there nodding silently. Darcy took a moment to compose herself. So, what should we do about the house? I've fallen behind on the mortgage payments. Let's sell it. I never want to set foot there again, and I doubt you can afford to buy me out. You can keep the house since I took the rest of the money. Just have your lawyer prepare a quitclaim deed. After a long silence, Darcy expressed, I'm sorry for causing you so much pain. I regret cheating and losing you. A minute passed before Darcy asked, Is the money all gone? Yeah, that's why I've been staying here. Does Ginger know everything? More or less. We told the detective what triggered your reaction. She never visited Trent in the hospital and filed for divorce. She left Acrid and warned me never to cross her path. I hope she moved away because there was so much hatred in her eyes when she warned me. It seems like you're still in touch with Trent. Not really. He's back at Acrid and wanted me to tell you that he'll seek revenge. Are you hungry? My treat. No thanks. That ship has sunk too deep. It's never going to resurface. There was no malice in his tone, but Darcy became visibly emotional. I retreated back into the house, and a few minutes later, Darcy drove away. About a month later, I found myself at the 2-Minute Warning Bar and Grill. Although it wasn't a date, I had struck up a friendship with a girl named Lacey. It appeared that she frequented the place as often as I did, as we coincided here several times a week. Initially, she seemed hesitant when I bought her drinks, but tonight she sat across from me as we watched some games. Our attempts at sports commentary were laughable. I was taken completely by surprise when my chair suddenly tipped over, sending me sprawling. What the hell? I exclaimed as I scrambled to my feet. The man responsible, presumably Trent, had the most severe case of acne I'd ever seen. His arms, neck, and face were covered in deep scars. I forced a smile. Hey, Trent, you're looking, well, interesting. Seems your face matches your personality. Unfortunately, Lacey giggled, which seemed to anger Trent even more. You're dead, Danny. Start planning your funeral, he shouted before storming off. We locked eyes for a moment before Trent left. Lacey quickly informed the manager to have security monitor the parking lot. In hindsight, I probably should have called the police. Maybe they could have paid Trent a visit. Leaving the bar in darkness, I departed without Lacey, maintaining my clean record. They say you don't hear the bullet, and that proved true as it pierced through me, causing intense pain and a rush of blood. Fading into unconsciousness, I caught the sound of more gunfire. After surgery, I discovered those shots were the bar security, taking down Trent. I'd been struck once, a rifle shot, causing severe damage to my liver and intestines. A slight shift in trajectory could have been fatal or caused spinal injury. Jobless and uninsured, bankruptcy loomed ahead. The religious hospital transferred me to the county facility, perhaps their version of a blessing. Fortunately, with Trent gone and looming medical expenses, the charges against me were dropped. If I were jailed, the county would foot the bill for my treatment. A win-win except for Trent. Thankfully, my parents got their bail money refunded. I received a get-well card from Ginger, expressing apologies for Trent's behavior and wishing me a speedy recovery. However, there was no return address provided. Visits from Darcy or her family never materialized. My daily routine typically begins with a visit from a nurse attending to my needs before departing. I undergo physical therapy on my own as I lack insurance coverage. Despite receiving encouragement from both my mother and father to recover and move out, I feel guilty for disrupting their quiet life. What's particularly unpleasant is having to wear adult diapers until my body adjusts to the changes in my internal landscape. One of my medications has the unfortunate side effect of anal leakage. It's bewildering to have such a side effect for whatever condition I have. Nevertheless, I plan to discontinue this medication once I finish the current bottle. As soon as my legs regained strength, I began jogging. In the morning at noon, and in the evening. I stuck close to home, wearing down the sidewalks and prompting the same dogs to bark at me every time I circled the block. Once I felt confident enough to venture farther, I stopped by the convenience store, then proceeded to the grocery store, and eventually made it to 2-minute warning. Lacey was present and greeted me with, "Hey stranger, you've lost weight." I gave her a once-over and replied, "Hey stranger, you're looking fantastic. Pervert, you really scared us that night." Believe me, I was scared too. Trying to get back on track and be a productive member of society, was hoping to bump into you. Quite the smooth talker. We took turns checking on you at the hospital, but then you vanished. Yeah, no insurance, so they cut their losses and passed me off to the county. Ah, got it. You really do look good. Have you been fully discharged yet? Not quite. I have an appointment next week, and I'll try to charm my way through it. Definitely not how I envisioned spending the last 3 months. Can I get you a drink? Sure, just water. Seems like everything else is off limits. Before the incident, I was just some guy buying her drinks. Now Lacey was more open with me. Turns out she and her mother owned the place. Since I wasn't exactly in a position to pursue her, wearing diapers tends to dampen your flirtatious spirit. It was simply nice to pass the time chatting with her. After I was no longer in diapers and had enough strength to hold down a job, I began working in an auto parts store. Starting with 16 hours a week, my hours gradually increased until I had a full-time position within a few months. This provided me with sufficient income to move out of my parents' house and also allowed me to afford health insurance at a reasonable rate, which was particularly helpful for covering my prescriptions. One Friday evening, while I was working the counter just after 5, a woman approached with some windshield wipers. "Could you confirm if these are the correct ones for my car?" She said, You're the fire ant guy, aren't you? Well, maybe, I replied with a wink. Didn't someone shoot you? But it wasn't you who killed him. Yes. And yes, I affirmed. After scoffing in disbelief, she remarked, Dreamy, huh? Looks like you've taken a knock to the head. Not tonight, but perhaps we could catch up over coffee so you can share your version of what happened. Are you in a relationship or otherwise committed? I don't want to intrude. Nope. How about the day after tomorrow? What's your availability like? I'm on the shift, starting at noon and closing at 9. How about breakfast? Bob suggests that Village Inn nearby. There aren't many of them left. Just let me know a time that suits you. Well, I have to be at work by 9, so let's aim for 7 a.m. by the way. I'm Faith. Pleasure to meet you, Faith. See you then. After making sure I looked presentable, I made my way to the restaurant. The hostess instructed me to choose any seat. Since Faith wasn't there yet, I settled into a booth and waited. Just as I was about to order, the hostess approached me again. Are you Danny? Yes, that's me. Faith won't be able to make it, but she left you her number, she said, handing me a slip of paper with a phone number on it. My initial disappointment quickly dissipated. Hello? Faith, it's Danny. Oh, thank you for calling. I didn't have any other means to contact you. I won't be able to make it for breakfast. My son is unwell, and the daycare won't accept sick children, so I'm waiting for my mom to arrive. I apologize sincerely. Can we try again in a few hours? I've taken the morning off, so maybe we can meet before you head to work. It's on me this time, since I stood you up. Well, if you put it like that, sure. You have my number, so call me back when you're ready. After relishing a stack of pancakes and coffee, I understood why Bob enjoyed this place. On my way back to my apartment, I caught up on some online classes I was enrolled in. My intention was to transition back to the type of job I had before the plant closed down. Insufficient computer skills were one of the reasons my resume had been rejected. Around 10, my nerves resurfaced when Faith called. It took me 10 minutes to return to the Village Inn. Faith met me outside and we entered together. After ordering another round of breakfast, we delved into exchanging stories. I conducted some online research regarding your recent ordeal. It appears that you discovered your wife in a compromising situation with a friend, then proceeded to restrain him on an anthill before disappearing. Upon your return, he sought you out and attempted to take your life. Is my understanding accurate? Yes, I intended to harm them, but I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger of the shotgun. I was consumed by rage. The decision to stake him on the anthill was impulsive. I drained our bank accounts and vanished for several months. However, being a fugitive didn't suit me, so I returned home. They pressed charges against you but then dropped them. How did you manage that? With Trent deceased and my mounting medical bills, it was more cost-effective for them to release me. Without a victim to pursue, it ultimately came down to finances. Well, it seems to have worked out in your favor. I suppose so. Yet, I must live with the guilt and enduring medical issues resulting from being shot. What sort of medical issues? You appear to be in good health. I suffer from intestinal and liver problems. I've had to give up alcohol and spicy foods. But let's shift the focus. You mentioned having a son but claimed not to be married. Can you elaborate? In college, I got pregnant after being drugged at a frat party. While I could try to locate the biological father, I'd prefer my son to have no contact with whoever was involved that night. Whoever he is, he's a despicable person. Fortunately, my dad serves as a wonderful father figure for my son. How old is your son? He just turned 4. Let's see, considering that you must be nearing 25 then. Close enough. And you? I'm 29. What do you do for work? I work as a receptionist. How long have you been at your job? Just a few months. I used to work at a factory that closed down. I was in charge of inventory control, but there's no demand for that skill around here at the moment. Are you divorced? It's in progress. Family court proceedings take time. I only filed after the shooting incident, and then there's a 6-month separation period after filing. Oh, don't worry, it's settled. All paperwork is done, and we're just waiting for our court date next month. I don't even need to attend. And no, I'm not interested in reconciling. I haven't seen her since a few days after I got back from the hospital. She didn't even bother visiting me after I was shot. You seem indifferent about it. Did you ever truly love her? It hurt me deeply when it happened. You don't react that strongly unless your world is shattered. Then came months of questioning my self-worth and what went wrong. I could dwell on the past or focus on the future. For me, the question is, did she ever truly love me? That's a tough question. Have you ever been in love, besides with your son? Faith teared up at the question, so I interjected, never mind. I shouldn't have asked. Look, here comes our breakfast. We dined in a subdued atmosphere, and then Faith reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. Yes, she said. Yes, I replied. We had agreed to wait until graduating to get married. When I got pregnant, he completely cut me out of his life. He knew the child wasn't his, and that was the end of it. Do you still love him? Not really. Some parts of my memory still long for what we had, but he abandoned me when I needed him the most. I shouldn't have gone to that party, but being drugged and raped was never part of the plan. Did you report it? Yeah, what a joke. Campus security did nothing, and the local police couldn't intervene since the state gives full legal jurisdiction to campus security. It's a way of shielding the university from liability. If they ignore complaints, it's like nothing ever happened. Well, I had no idea. That's terrible. Tell me about it. We ran out of time. Let's go and I'll install those wiper blades for you. Shoot, I left them at home. You'll have to drop by and do it some other time, she said with a twinkle in her eyes. My schedule revolves around work and online classes, so just give me a call whenever. Thanks for buying breakfast. Next time it's on me. Sounds like a plan, Danny. It was nice getting to know you, she said, giving me a peck on the cheek. Have a great day, Faith. I hope Charles, your son, feels better soon. Jerk, his name is Charles after his grandfather. Faith waved as she drove off. There was this nagging feeling that I knew Faith somehow. With the age difference, she must have been someone's younger sister when I was in school. Reflecting on it felt like unearthing ancient memories. While I was at work, Faith called and left a message. During my break, I returned the call, but it went to voicemail again. The back and forth of missed calls began. As I rode my bike home from work, Faith finally managed to get through, and our phones connected. Hey there. Wasn't sure if we'd ever catch each other. What's up? Just finished work. My car wouldn't start this morning, so I biked to work. Now I'm hauling a new battery home. What about you? I was wondering if you'd like to hang out this weekend. I'd love to. I'm working both days from noon until 9, but I'm free on Monday and Wednesday. How about a picnic breakfast with Charles and me? That sounds perfect. Pick a day. Let's go for Saturday. Columbine Park by the rec center. 9 a.m.? I'll be there. Oh, before you go, I had this feeling we've met before. Have we? Yep. See you Saturday. Ta-ta. And the call ended. What a tease. My thoughts were chaotic. The thrill of dating had returned, bringing with it a flurry of questions. Was Charles someone truly exceptional from the start? Could I even be a good role model? The long absence of intimacy made these decisions even more difficult. Taking it one day at a time became my guiding principle. On Saturday morning, my nerves were in overdrive. With sweaty palms, I waited in the parking lot until I spotted Faith, while Charles dashed toward the swing set in the park. Have you been waiting long? I didn't want to keep you waiting, I replied with a smile. As I admired Faith's cut-off shorts, I was caught off guard. Do I pass muster? Well, obviously, that's a loaded question. Of course you do, but you already knew that. I bet you tried on a few outfits before settling on that one. Maybe. Charles seemed unsure about me until I started pushing him higher and higher on the swing. Faith sat on the blanket, observing me interact with Charles. I felt I had passed the initial test. The date ended with a satisfying, passionate kiss. My heart was soaring. It felt good to experience this again. Faith and I continued seeing each other for another month before we took our relationship to the next level. It was passionate, primal intimacy. Both of us had been without physical connection for so long that it wasn't about making love. It was about fulfilling a primal urge. We were both content with that. The sensation of being desired by a willing partner was exhilarating for me, while Faith found pleasure in the tenderness I offered. In the quiet hours of the night and early morning as I caressed her breasts, she skillfully brought me back to life, reviving my arousal. A week later, our encounters evolved into lovemaking. I'll confess, I lacked the expertise to naturally excel at pleasing her orally. However, Faith desired it so much that she eagerly guided me with candid feedback. After a month of exploring each other's bodies, we began discussing the direction of our relationship. One night, as Faith lay naked beside me, she gently touched my genitals. "Danny, are we exclusive?" she asked. "I hope so." "Since our picnic, I've only had eyes for you," I replied. "I feel the same way. Shall we commit to exclusivity and forego using condoms?" "Can we do that?" she suggested. "If it eases your mind, we can both get tested for STDs. I believe I'm clean, but I'm willing to confirm it," I offered. "I agree. I also believe I'm clean," she said. That was our first step. We went for testing together and shared our clean results. Condoms became a thing of the past, and Faith shared her birth control details with me. Our next deep conversation occurred around a month later, under circumstances reminiscent of when Faith playfully squeezed my testicles. I believe we've fallen for each other, but we still seem cautious in our intimate discussions. Do you trust women, or do you view us all through the same lens now? Well, the initial hurt cuts deepest, so subsequent relationships often suffer unfairly. What about you? Do you harbor the same resentment towards men as you did towards your ex? Most likely. As you said, the heart dislikes pain. Defense mechanisms kick in involuntarily. Did you ever figure out where we first met? Not entirely. I figure for me to remember your eyes, we must have crossed paths a few times, right? Several times, but not on consecutive days. The plot thickens. Don't give me any hints. I want to solve this. Were you a receptionist when we met? Yes, I was. At the factory? You've got it. Front desk? Yes, you rarely use the front entrance, so I only saw you when you had meetings in the conference rooms. Ah, I see. I was married then, so I tried to avoid eye contact. Quite disciplined, wasn't I? That's how it goes. So where do we proceed from here? How about counseling? Not that we're heading there, but I know there are people who offer pre-marriage counseling. Maybe it could help us put the past behind us. I like the idea. And so we did. That was 4 years ago. Yes, we got married. Faith is now a stay-at-home mom with our child. Charles is thriving in school and is a big brother. I coach his ball team, and he treats me like his father. If Darcy and I had the same conversations that Faith and I still engage in, we might have ended up together. However, our immaturity at that time led to significant consequences.